What's going on, guys? So, today, I know will be like the last non-Yu-Gi-Oh! Related video to be posted, but I was watching some new upcomer YouTubers and stuff like that, and I'm still new and upcoming, so I'm not trying to bash them in any way. I'm just saying as I was watching some newer ones, and I noticed that their still video quality is low. And now I know everybody's gonna say, well, that's probably because their camera's low because they're new to it and they don't have the best camera. And you know what? That is fine. That is what it can be. That is possible. That is what it is. Most of the time. I'd say 90% of the time. But what I've also noticed is some people aren't that computer adept, and which is fine because not everybody is. I'm a computer nerd. I've always have been. I'm into video. I'm into photography. It's just how I am. Now, a major thing that people do, though, is that even if your video quality is not the best from your camera, sometimes they'll upload a video and still wonder, why does it look so bad, or why is the audio off? And that is because they don't render their video properly. So I'm going to explain why rendering a video properly is necessary and how to render a video properly. So, first off, to know how to render a video properly, you have to know what video bitrate is. And what video bitrate is basically how much storage is being made to make that video, and the higher storage is the higher quality, basically. If that makes any sense. It's the best way I can explain it. Music files have bit rates, and we're going to get into that quickly. So, here's the video footage from my one video that I posted. It's got amazing, super high bit rate, incredibly too high, because of, it's using fraps, and fraps makes super high, crazy bit rates that you don't even need. But, alright, here's a simple one of a recording that I never posted. It's 1920 by 1080, and it's got a data bit rate of, when it's 27,000 of that numbers, I average it to 28,000 kilobytes per second average bit rate, total bit rate. That's because I have a higher quality camera, and that's at 60 frames per second. Good quality 1080p video, mostly if you're looking to buy a camera. You want to see if it does only at least 30 frames per second, to make sure it's at least 17 to 20,000 kilobytes per second, or 17 megabits to 20 megabits per second video rendering. That's usually good 1080p quality. So that's the bit rate, okay? And that's why it's important. The higher the bit rate, the better the video. Now, why I'm explaining this is because average digital cameras that shoot at 720p or 1080, they have lower bit rates. It can vary from 8,000 to 20,000 kilobytes per second. I'm just going to keep saying megabits. So 8 megabits to 20 megabits per second video quality. But when people render the video, they render lowly. Okay, so I have the video from the other day that I posted about me getting out of Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff. The Call of Duty footage is only at 30 frames per second video. Then also the data bit rate is only, what is the data? Oh, it's only 17,000 or 17 megabits per second data bit rate. So that's an average for 1080p. My capture card's not the best. There's capture cards now that do better than that. So, when I was recording the audio, I did it through my camera because I have a good, my mic has been broken for some time. So, I paired them up, and just made the video. But when I render it, and this is the part that we're going to be going over, okay, so, now, different video programs have different render settings and have different ways of wording it and things like that. If you're getting new to video editing and you don't have a Mac, because Macs come with a very decent default video editor. It's just, I forget what it's called. But I'm not anti-Mac. I like Macs. I just don't have a Mac. But they have a good video editor. But most people are on Windows. If you want a good video editor that's easy to learn and pretty cheap, because Windows Movie Player, I'm telling you right now, will not cut it. There's all sorts of options, but I would recommend Sony Movie Studio Platinum 12 or Platinum 13. It's usually only $50-60. It comes with Sony SoundForge, which is basically just Audacity. If you don't know what those programs are, that doesn't really relate to you. But and the Movie Studio itself is very good. It's very basic. I also use Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere together to use more advanced editing, but I don't really use those for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because you really don't need to ever. In fact, I don't really need to use those programs ever, unless I was doing projects for people in school a while back. Don't really use those programs. So if you're getting new to YouTube, this is a very good program I'd recommend because it has a lot of things to do. And don't get any of the older Sony products because, to get not nerdy with you, basically the newer programs, if you have a very high-up processor, it can take full advantage of the processor. All the Sony programs before 2012 only used half if you had a quad core, they wouldn't be multi-threaded. If you don't know what that means, just ignore it. I'm just letting you know, if you have a newer computer, you want to go with 2012 and onwards when it comes to Sony video editing programs. Anyways, this is like a $50 program, very basic. I'm going to teach you how to render in it, but you can use what I'm about to teach you and somehow accumulate it to other video editors to get an idea of how to render it. So what the main mistake people make is, alright, these are presets that I made for all sorts of different things. But what people's main problem is, they're like, alright, I have say my camera does 1080p. Some random camera that isn't the one that I'm using, because obviously it does do 1080p. And then they're like, oh, Internet HD 1080p. I'll probably want to use that for my HD footage. Which, don't get me wrong, that's what I used to think a long time ago too. And then they'll use that for editing. But then they'll later be like, why is my video quality a little lower than I think it should be, and my audio sounds a little off? Well, I'm going to show you. Okay, so we're going to customize the template. So right here, the resolution's fine, the frame rate's fine. I'd say most people who starting off or have a camera that shoots 1080p, whether it be some low digital camera or high-up camera, usually shoots at 30 frames per second or 29 frames per second. But these are the problems. Allow source to adjust the frame rate. No, you do not want to do that. It's not necessarily bad. I'd say people could have probably been doing that their entire lives and have that checked and nothing changes it. But for me, I like to make sure it's at the constant frames per second to allow smoothness constantly. I don't know why. It really isn't needed. You could keep that checked, but I like to keep it unchecked. And so for both of them, I don't allow source to adjust the frame size either. You want it to go to 1080p, so if you have like a smaller scale than 1080p video, but you still want to stretch to 1080p, you'll lose quality a little bit, but you don't want to allow the source to adjust the frame size. You can adjust it yourself. So that's fine for frames per second, whatever, nothing. Field progressive, keep that same, pixel aspect ratio, all this. Now this is the part that really determines the video quality, okay? Variable bitrate. Now, some people would argue that variable bitrate is just fine. I personally do not think it is a fine thing. Okay, so my video is 17,000 bitrate. It's a lower quality 1080p video, but that's what it is. It's 17,000 kilobytes per second or 17 megabits per second, okay? Now they're saying it'll average between a maximum of 24 and a lower of 12. This is bad. If you don't know anything about audio, there's also variable bitrate audio, which is not good audio. You might get a song that is 230 kilobytes per second, or you might get one that's 320 kilobytes per second on variable bitrate albums. You don't like that. You want it all to be across the board, and most albums you buy today on iTunes are usually 320 across the board, sometimes 256. So it's the same with a video. You don't want it to average out, because at some parts of the video that the program determines that don't need to be as high quality, it'll go down all the way to 12 megabits when my video is at 17 megabits. I don't want it to go lower. So what I do is I do a constant bitrate. So even though my video is 17,000 megabits, it doesn't hurt to go higher. It'll just take a little longer for the video to render. But since my presets for this is 20,000, I just always set it to 20,000 if it's below 20,000. I'll just set it at 20,000. Even if it's like a 12 megabit per second video, I will set it at 20,000 or 17,000. Doesn't matter, okay? I will always set it to that, and that's good for 1080p video. That is an average. My camera, when it's not shooting at 60 frames per second and shooting at 30, it does it in 20. So 20 is good. If you have a computer with a separate graphics card and you're into gaming or whatever, depending on what graphics card you use, if you have NVIDIA, you want to render using CUDA, or if you have AMD, render using OpenCL. It'll make the render go process because it uses your CPU and your graphics card capabilities. But anyways, that's for video. So right there, we determined your video quality. So that's what I'm saying. If somebody had an HD camera that shot at like 15 kilobytes per second and they did an variable bitrate of that by default because they choose the preset, not going into the details, that's why the video quality might look lower later, because the program determined to do lower quality at certain points. So constant bitrate is what I like to do for my video. Now audio, some people might say, my audio sounds slightly lower than even if I'm listening to the file before editing it on my computer. Well, this is another big one. So for some people, if they've ever realized on YouTube, when you go to 480p to 1080 or 720, all of a sudden the audio changes too. Usually it's from 360, whatever. That's also YouTube's compression, that's a part of it, but also when they have the lower compression on YouTube, they have lower audio bit rate so you can load the video faster. But when you do to 720 and 1080, they have a higher quality audio bit rate. So, but if you render your video in a low quality bit rate as it is, it's going to sound like that no matter what resolution you are on YouTube. And that's what I'm talking about here. So, include audio, obviously. My sample rate's 48 kilohertz. That's default for most stereo audio. Now, 192 is a really low quality audio format. I mean, really low. 256 still kind of sounds low to me when I listen to music files, because I'm a big music head, I have tons of music. When I can get music at 256, I'm still unhappy, like, why would the artist just not render it in higher bitrate? It's like 2015. But this is the standard. When you get an iTunes music thing, and you can even look this up on your computer by right-clicking it and choosing properties on the song, I'd say 9 times out of 10, the bitrate for audio will be 320 kilobytes per second. That is high-quality audio as far when it comes to MP3s. And well, this is a video, but it has MP3 audio into it. Well, no, it's AAC, but still, whatever. This bitrate makes the audio sound higher and more quality. So even if your video doesn't even have that high of a bitrate of audio by default in its profile, rendering it at a higher won't necessarily make the quality improved, but it's definitely better than having it lower, if that makes any sense to you. But it's good to have it as like an MP3, high quality MP3. When you render it, it'll make your audio more clear, more rich, and better. Now, if you really go crazy, you can crank it up to 512, but I guarantee 99% of people don't even have the microphone or quality to justify 512 unless you're in an official music recording studio. Same with 320, but it at least makes it like your audio is a full like music song and filled. So that's what we do here. We go to system, it's at MP4 format for it to render out in. And then the project, I always say use project settings, but I also like to just pick for best on my preset. So that's just, you know, to make it highest as it can. So there you go. That's how you make a preset for rendering video perfectly, to make it the highest quality you can. So the reason why I was doing this too is because, like I said, if you have a camera that doesn't shoot the best and you're aware of that, well, this will let you know how to get the most out of your camera instead of using presets, which can maybe sometimes make your video quality look lower than it already may be. And if you have a high quality camera and you've been uploading videos and wondering why the videos haven't been looking as good as it is when you look at your, like, on your camera, then this can help you too, because you might just be rendering it bad, but you have a great camera. So here, guys, I know this wasn't Yu-Gi-Oh related, but this will help some oncoming YouTubers if they want to. If you have any questions, just leave comments below and I'll ask them as great as I can. Like I said, I'm a pretty big computer nerd. I know a lot about this stuff. So comment below and stuff like that. And I'm sorry it's not Yu-Gi-Oh related, but I felt like I wanted to make a video to help anybody who I could. So I'll see you later, guys. Peace!